I have here a Texans fan, team that we screwed over and over again last year and the year before. I think we won at Houston 34-0.
This is the ambassador of Colombia, and because it's the ambassador of Colombia and I am just a merely person interviewing him.
A pure mortal.
I am a pure mortal. I'll be very, very kind. But the ambassador here got his degree from the University of Texas in journalism.
I'm a Longhorn.
So therefore, you're a Longhorn, and for everything that we've said here, you're forgiven. Anyhow, let's get busy. We're about to get started.
Okay.
I am here with Ambassador Francisco Santos, Ambassador of Colombia. There's a lot that we have to talk about. First of all, Ambassador, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a journalist at heart and as profession. I was kidnapped by Pablo Escobar in 1990 because of my very strong stance as a journalist against drug traffickers, against terrorism. Then I created an NGO that helped kidnap victims in the 90s.
First, people don't know what an NGO is. Explain what that is.
A non-governmental organization that used to help victims that were being kidnapped in Colombia. Nobody used to help them. Then in the year 2000, when we were doing huge marches against the terrorist groups because of the kidnapping, I was targeted by the FARC and I had to leave Colombia and I went to live in Spain. And after that, I was in Spain and candidate Álvaro Uribe said to me, "You want to be vice presidential candidate?" I said, "I don't know nothing about politics. I'm a journalist." And he said, "Don't worry, you'll learn." And crazy as I am, I said yes.
And you became the vice president of Colombia.
I became vice president of Colombia between 2002 and 2010. We changed Colombia with President Uribe from almost a failed state to one of the jewels in Latin America with the help of the U.S., with the help of Plan Colombia, and I have to be very grateful to what the U.S. taxpayer and politicians did regarding Colombia. Afterwards, I went back to journalism. I was being so hard on the president then, Mr. President, that I got fired because...
and when did you get fired?
In 2012, because I wouldn't put the pedal off the metal. That happens in our region and in our countries. And after that, I decided to go back in politics, and I helped my party. I helped my party win elections, lose elections. I was a candidate for the mayor of Bogota. I lost. And I helped President Duque get elected from our party, and he decided he needed sort of a bicultural person to be in Washington, and so he decided to pick me as...
What do you mean by bicultural person in Washington?
I'm a big part of me is American.
Right.
I went to school here 5 years. I love this country. During the 8 years with President Uribe, I had to come to Washington many times to show the progress in Plan Colombia, to show what was happening in human rights, etc. So hey, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. That cannot be more bicultural than that.
And you're a UT Longhorn, so
yes.
I will attest to that.
Yes,
and given that I'm originally from Central America as well, Panama, I think we kind of share that same history. And by the way, I could also be considered an honorary Colombian because Panama was once the province of Colombia.
Yes, sir. Roosevelt took that away from us.
Oh, well, I did. I wasn't sure if I was going to bring that up about the gunboat in front of Colon or not, but I guess since you brought it up. But anyway.
It was called gunboat diplomacy for something.
It was called gunboat diplomacy for a reason. Anyway, we got the canal and you got an ally. But anyhow.
We got great friends and we have a great relation with Panama.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's move this on a bit to Venezuela. I don't know where you're going to stand on Venezuela, but I definitely have some issues that I'd like to discuss with you on that particularly. First of all, express to me in your own words how you see the Venezuelan situation, not necessarily concentrating on Maduro, but Venezuela as a country. The
biggest humanitarian crisis in the world right now, the biggest refugee crisis in the world right now, the biggest tragedy, economic tragedy probably in the world, other than North Korea, with continental dimension. For all of you U.S. listeners of this program, you have your backyard on fire. This is probably the biggest crisis the U.S., the continent has had in its history, humanitarian crisis. And I think what we are working together, the countries from the Grupo de Lima, which is Latin American countries that come together to solve this problem, with the U.S., it's a task at hand that needs to be performed because otherwise the U.S., Colombia, and the region can have a crisis like Somalia.
Maybe the point of compromise is not requiring Maduro to step down, but requiring organized elections that are actually viewed from the external.
Yes.
But right now, what we have as a concern is Donald Trump has just submitted a budget where he's asking for $500 million to support democracy at whatever cost in Venezuela.
No, look.
And that would be a concern if you were the president of Venezuela or the president of Colombia. If you heard that there is a superpower putting that kind of money behind having some effect in your country, I think that would create some issues, right?
If I were Maduro, it would be very worried.
Yeah.
And not only because of that, because he destroyed his country, because he is politically surrounded, and because the only way he can stay in power is with the Cuban thugs that he has around him. Mm-hmm. So yes, that for other reasons. What we are doing as Colombians and as Latin Americans, for the first time in history, is starting our diplomacy to create a new scenario for Venezuela. Remember, the Grupo de Lima, the U.S. is not part of the Grupo de Lima. And it was the Grupo de Lima that recognized the Assembly as the only democratic institution left in Venezuela. It was the Grupo de Lima that created the scenario of putting an alternative. And that's the Latin American countries deciding the future of a country and helping decide the future of a country without the U.S. interference.
One question, I don't remember his name right now, the envoy that Donald Trump just assigned to Latin America, who was once convicted.
Elliot Abrams.
Has he met with anybody from the Grupo de Lima?
Yes, he has met with all of us. I met him
Okay.
Last week.
And that is my concern.
What?
In as much as the Grupo de Lima is todos somos Latinoamericanos, all Latin Americans, that they would meet, I think it's problematic.
Working with the U.S. as partners to get this problem solved diplomatically, hopefully solved peacefully, and hopefully to make Venezuela return to a democratic scenario. I don't think you have seen that happening in Latin America ever. Before, it used to be a coup d'etat. Sometimes from the left they say, oh, the American invasion. Really? The only country that's right now being invaded is Venezuela by the more than 20,000 Cubans that they have there.
Are there really 20,000 Cubans?
There are between doctors and military personnel.
You see how that becomes a problem when you say there are doctors that are Cuban and that's included in the 20,000, right?
Oh yeah, no, because they indoctrinate, because they create. So it's a civilian military invasion, but the invasion of the military is absolutely real. We are trying to get Venezuela back on track in a democratic scenario. That's what we're trying. We're trying to do it peacefully through a diplomatic blockade and with economic sanctions from the Latin American countries and from the U.S. too, and we hope we'll be successful.
I am so happy that you gave this interview, but I mean, would you say, and I think we can all conclude that what we really are saying here is we would love to have most, if not all countries, Latin America and beyond, be capitalist democracies. Is that correct?
Democracies.
Capitalist.
Real democracies.
Okay.
Democracy. Whatever model of economic decision making they decide, well, that's for the people to decide. Mm-hmm. If they decide and firmly decide and they that want to go this way or the other, that's their decision.
Right.
That's their decision. That's the decision that they have to take. The problem is when you take that decision away from the hands of the citizens. That's what's happened in Venezuela. That's what is happening in Nicaragua. And those type of decisions, when the powerful government or a president or the head of state takes away the independence of powers, you create that type of supposedly democratic country, but it's just a facade for a dictatorship.
Ambassador Francisco Santos, I hope I'll get a chance to talk to you, maybe, who knows, in a different position later on in life. And I hope that as a member of the Grupo de Lima, as you go back, you remember those words. A democracy with whatever economic system they decide that they want to have to ensure that everybody in that country has equal access to success.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I thank you. And
it's a pleasure speaking to you.
And have a good day.
Great Longhorn.
And